The core flow here is that I want search bar. From search bar, I would ideally want the user to move to maybe product listing page. Then from a product listing page, what I would do is product page, and finally probably to the payment page, whatever it is. It depends on product to product. When I'm defining the core flow, I would represent it like this, typically in bold lines, which shows that it's a core flow, right? If something is universal, which which will not change while the user moves across the application, whatever the web, whether it's a web application, website, etc., try to put across give it a different color. The core flows are always represented in a manner that are easy to read, easy to understand. If it's a non-obvious flow in the flow chart, right, what you effectively do is you try to connect it with a dotted line so that people understand this is not the primary flow of focus, right? But there can be a possibility that from the search bar to the brand page is not a primary flow, but from the brand page to payment page is a primary flow, that anybody who reaches to the brand page, the next step for him or her is payment, right? So I would again show a bold line, and then in the wireframe itself, in the flowchart itself, I will try to describe in very small manner that what does the search bar do. Search allows me to reach the product listing page. Yeah, and I will connect it through some diagram, maybe again a normal line, right? Another thing that I would ideally say from my experience as a PM is whenever you use arrow bars, right? Arrow bars are primarily used to show directions. The point is not that you cannot just say that I can put an arrow somewhere. Arrow means that you're putting something in a directional manner, right? But when you're not using an arrow bar, it typically means I am trying to explain something. So this, because it's a non-arrow button, it automatically tells the designer or the tech team specifically who are implementing that flowchart or looking at that flowchart that this is not a direction, this is an explanation. Yahan tak baat clear aa gayi? Is it very clear, guys? Till now, what happens in a flowchart? Is it very clear? Awesome. Awesome. Now, once you have functionally made the flowchart, then you move towards the wireframe layer, right? This is something that is called as a wireframe layer. Now, again, I told you, wireframes are not the visual representation of the product. A wireframe tells the user what the user should understand and should be able to do with the product. It's not a visual representation, but a wireframe also communicates to the user that what is important and what is not that important. Like, for example, my core goal is for a user to reach the product page. For example, that's my core goal. That how do I design an app in which a user, an e-commerce app in which a user from the homepage screen eventually reaches to the product page screen. That is something that I want to showcase, right? Now, I just created a flowchart for it. What I do primarily is, I just from any of the places, and the best way is that's why you should use a very good tool. Most of the tools have those elements made in, right? For example, if I have to effectively create a mobile interface, I'll just go here and primarily search. Draw.io gives you a lot of flexibility, by the way. So I can just write mobile and see, I get a bunch of mobile screens. I just put it across here, make it slightly larger. So the design team or the engineering teams understand that it's a mobile screen. Or if not this, maybe the most commonly used structure. This is the most commonly used structure. It's just available. You don't even have to make it, right? It's just there. So there are certain, so even before I try to create a wireframe, let me give you some 3-4 elements on which how do you effectively choose a wireframing tool, right? The first thing that you should look at is that, is the tool able to give you the core dimensional aspects of the core viewport structures? What I mean by viewport is basically the screen size, right? Nowadays, there are multiple screen sizes through which we interact with information. One is mobile, second is tablet, third is desktop, fourth is any website or any interface, maybe TV also, right? Is an interface through which we interact with the internet and use websites and applications, right? So the tool should have those basic layouts already built in so that you don't have to put an effort. So the first thing that you have to look at is the basic layouts The basic design layouts should be already there as a product manager, and always choose that tool. The second thing that you should functionally also look at is that the tool should be able to give you some sense of sharing ability, very easy, right? So here what I can do is, once I create a wireframe, I can export it as a PNG, JPG, SVG, PDF, HTML, XML, whatever I want to put across, right? Third, ideally, this tool doesn't allow you. The third thing that you should look at is, while you're creating a wireframe, is primarily that it should give you some ability of collaboration. For example, right, I created a wireframe and Parth is another PM, for example, right? And I just want to discuss with him that whether this makes sense or doesn't make sense. So it is not like I should be able to just download a PNG, then he will open the PNG, then he will try to edit that PNG and send it back to me. The tool should have a collaborative structure built in itself, right? Draw.io doesn't have that, but it's a simple tool. Like, more often than not, you will have advanced tools in your companies whenever you are working in a startup. Something like Balsamic will be there, Miro will be there, and a lot of other tools would be there. I use it just for the simplicity of purpose, right? The fourth thing that I would ideally also recommend from while choosing a wireframing tool is that it should have most of your general purpose actions already listed, like creating a circle, creating a heading, creating a dotted line, creating a miscellaneous structure, right? That should already exist, right? Now, if these 3-4 things, I will repeat again. First, the viewport structures, which is basically whether it's a mobile device, whether it's a desktop device, whether it's a tablet device, whether it's a TV device, those layouts should already exist. That's one, right? Second, sharing ability should be very simple because wireframes are collaboratively made, right? Third, that basically it should have a collaboration structure while I'm designing the wireframe. That's the third structure. And the fourth structure that I'm looking at is that it should also give me multiple elements to play with, right? Which can be a circle, which can be something like a polygon or a line or a dotted line or whatever, etc. I'm trying to do across here, right? So that is something that you choose. Now, again, coming back to our core flow, the wireframe. Now here what you see is that I have taken a functional layout of a mobile screen, and the first thing that you see is that I've created a large search bar, right? What does it tell you? There are two aspects here. One, that it tells you that I've given it a large real estate, or the size of the button is larger and it's in the first fold. That typically means this search bar is far more important than launch of the month widget that I'm showing there. So the higher the size, typically the larger value prop that I'm putting across. Does that make sense? So you would see that the add to cart button, right? If it's a primary button, right? It is typically very, very easily discoverable. And rest of the buttons on the screen might be small buttons, but add to cart and buy now buttons are like very big, right? Because you want to showcase it to the customer. It's a primary intended. So the first learning that you have in a wireframe while you're making a wireframe, the larger the size, the more the visibility. It should not be that randomly kuch bhi utha ke you just put it randomly and make the search bar very smaller like this much and everybody will understand. No, the designer will not. The way that you have to put it across is, if you are making the search bar larger, it communicates it to the designer that you're saying that this is an area of emphasis. Does that make sense? Right? Give me a sense. Give me a yes or no. Does that make sense or not? Awesome. Absolutely. Now, what is the next thing that I want to talk about? The next thing that I want to talk about is, while you're moving from top to bottom, right? The elements which are of similar size, right, ideally have similar value, right? For example, if I want to present two stores, so this is a homepage screen and it's the infinite scroll screen. Infinite scroll screen primarily. If you move from top to bottom, you see that this launching iPhone 8s, the beast, this looks like a banner, right? I'm moving from top to bottom. Another thing comes across as Zara summer collections, which is of similar size. So what do you see the next thing here? You see that the launching iPhone 8s as a banner primarily, and then you see the Zara summer collections, they are of almost similar real estate, right? What does that tell you? That typically tells the end user as well as the designer that both hold equal importance, right? That is also very important. So whenever you are designing a section, right, you have to put it across like that. Third thing, the elements which are in proximity in a wireframe, which are similar, which are like electronics, clothing, they should be at a same information hierarchy structure. So I'll give you one very simple example. If you go to amazon.com, how many have seen, have you seen the strip below the search bar where categories are listed? Give me a yes or no. Just below the search bar, you see that the categories are listed. But ऐसा क्यों नहीं होता कि यार कि once it's written books and somewhere it's written Zara t-shirt, it's not a category. Why does that not happen? It can very well happen, right? But why do you think at a particular information layer, the same elements which are in proximity, like I am talking about a category level structure, right? I'm talking about an information layer structure. So even though electronics, clothing, home are different categories, right? But all three are categories. It's not like I have showcased an iPhone here. Sometimes we do that, but majority of the cases we will not. Sometimes if I know that, okay, my iPhone is the highest selling product, like if you go to Sony LIV, like I'll give you a very simple example. Let me open a Sony LIV. Okay, so now you know that I have a Sony LIV subscription. Sad, but anyways, so you see this. Here are TV shows, originals, sports, movies, premium, whatever games. So these are all categories, right? But you see just one show listed here, which is Shark Tank. Why do you think it would happen? It is an anomaly, right? But why? Because primarily it is something that you know that it's going to channelize a lot of my users. It's a high priority item, right? That's why I've mentioned the launch of the month primarily here, right? But rest are functional categories, right? Now, what I've done here is, again, so I created a basic structure. In the wireframe, I gave a sense of basically the visual design, that basically what are the elements, how it would look like, right? How the wish list would look like. Then I've primarily clicked on that. If somebody clicks on the search button, how does the search screen look like? Right? And that is the second step. That's the second page that I've talked about. Then the third page. Now coming here, right? Tell me guys, till now we have learned some things here, right? What does this page tell you from a wireframe standpoint? That on the product listing page, I have shown the larger picture of the product, some information of the product. I see 3 buttons here: share, similar, add, and then buy now and add to cart. But buy now and add to carts are like large. I told you intended action should be on top. But what does this tell you? Here the intended actions are at the bottom. Because when I'm purchasing a product, I need to make up my intent. While I'm discovering a product, I have already thought of that intent, that what I want. That's why my primary action is not to basically purchase the product, but to discover the product. So I don't want to waste my time and effectively do it, right? But while I'm making an intended purchase, I need information, and then only I would be able to click on the buy now or add to cart button. So what did you understand? When the intent is of action, of engagement primarily, then you need information for people to understand why that engagement is important, right? But when the intended action is of discovery, right, then I am already thought of this thing, that what I want to discover. So my communication, that discovery element is already sorted. मैं गाड़ी के शोरूम में तो तभी जाऊंगा ना जब मैंने सोच लिया होगा कि मैं गाड़ी खरीदूंगा. That's how it will work, right? Yes. So logically, the presence of the most important icon on top or on bottom is also dependent on the type of action the user has to take. Again, in the same way that I created a flowchart, I started with the first screen, then I started with the second screen, and now in every screen I have tried to put across what are the structures that will work? Like if I want to put across what will happen in the account section, in the same structure of visual hierarchy, I will present my orders on top, my wallet below, and then what are those elements which are not very lucrative to the customer, I will put it across in a slightly smaller manner, right? Then same with wish list, right? Now I want to communicate that I'm launching a feature of a brand store. So I created a wireframe. So one more thing that I want to talk very, very critically to you guys. In a wireframe structure, you don't make all screens. You only make those flows which are part of the feature that you're building. अगर मैं सबके flows बनाने लग जाता तो this will be like 500 screens. Whenever you're making a wireframe, you only describe those flows which are part of the feature structure that you're putting across for a value prop standpoint, right? So I wanted to put across a Flipkart premium app. That's why I wanted to show a Zara store. I created a store. I said that how the discovery of the store will happen. And I also, in that wireframe structure, also started describing that what will happen. So like I came on the sort page, I said the user can sort by all of those things. Now here, one more thing I want to talk about. In the sort button, I know for a fact that this shows sort, right? Now everybody will understand, but a designer will not be able to understand from a visual design perspective that sort by what, right? In the wireframe, I'm not showing it, but I am giving him or her enough information that these are the attributes through which you can sort, right? Similarly, while you're designing the search screen, I am saying I have just shown 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 products, right? It is not by mazak. It's not by ki aise hi bana diya hai. It shows to the designer that the maximum limit of search icons is 6 in that particular screen. So every action that you're taking in a wireframe structure has some context, right? Does that make sense? I will repeat from the starting point. First rule, that larger the value, larger the importance. One. Second rule, right? Elements of similar size on the wireframe are of similar importance. Okay? Third part, the elements, the information structure at a particular layer level has to be common, unless and until it's like an exception like Shark Tank, ya launch of the day, ya whatever you are doing, something like that. But at a particular information hierarchy level, things should be common. Fourth, you only make those flows which are relevant to the feature. And fifth, you try to describe, even if while you are making a structure across particular for a feature, if it has dense information, you put it outside the wireframe and put it as a text box. And again, the arrow flows are directional. The arrow flows are not random. That means you move from this page to this page, and primarily you move to the final page, whichever it is. Now I will stop here. This is where I will stop and take a pause. Over to you, Parth. Feel free.
Shravan, thank you so much for those wonderful insights. As any aspiring professional PM, this session has been truly amazing.